The 8-second attention span claim is wrong. There is no good evidence that humans have been downgraded into goldfish with Wi-Fi, but the fact that so many people believe it is almost more revealing than the claim itself. Because you sit down to do one task and within seconds the phone exists louder, the tabs look suddenly reasonable, and one random thought walks in like it pays rent. You still care about the task. That is the annoying part. So if the viral diagnosis is fake, why does focus still feel like something in the system keeps cracking? That fake timer is tempting because it gives the mess a clean shape. 8 seconds, battery empty, focus dead. Very tidy. Also very suspicious. Attention is not a countdown clock hiding somewhere behind your forehead. It is a set of control jobs running at once. Hold the task. Resist the pull. Shift when needed. Update what matters. So the real question is not whether you failed some tiny goldfish exam. The better question is which part of that control system gets crowded first. Because you can still be staring at the task while another part of you is already checking the phone, reopening a tab, or chasing a thought. And once the fake timer is gone, we need the real limit underneath it. The real limit is not 8 seconds. It is space. Working memory is the little active area where your brain keeps the task, the goal, the rule, and the next step close enough to use. And that area is smaller than it feels when everything is quiet. A useful modern estimate is only about 3 to 5 chunks at once, depending on the person, the task, and what counts as a chunk. That is not a warehouse. It is more like a small desk, where your plan, your sentence, your cursor, and your next move are all trying not to fall off the edge. So when something new lands there, even something tiny, the question becomes, what gets pushed aside first? Now, the small desk has a second problem. New things are not polite. Your brain is built to notice change, because in older settings, new could mean food, danger, information, or something that needed an immediate decision. So a blinking phone, a fresh tab, an inbox number, or a feed that might have changed is not competing fairly with the original task. The task is important, but it is also effortful, unfinished, and slow to reward you. The new thing is cheap, close, and maybe interesting. That does not mean your phone is a magic rectangle controlling your soul. It means ordinary attention rules are meeting objects that can refresh forever, with almost no friction. Novelty explains why the glance happens, but not why coming back feels like rebuilding the whole room. That rebuild is the expensive part. A notification can last 2 seconds, but it can knock the task state out of place. What you were doing, why it mattered, what rule you were following, what the next move was. Task switching has a cost, because the brain has to unload one set of rules and reload another. The more complex the task, the worse this gets, because you are not just returning to a page. You are returning to a mental setup. In workplace studies, interrupted same-day work did not simply resume after the interruption ended. On average, people came back after more than 23 minutes, often after doing other tasks first. That number is rude. And even when people compensate by working faster, they report more stress, pressure, effort, and frustration. So the damage is not the tiny interruption. It is the reset cost hiding behind it. And now the stranger question is, why so many resets begin with us? And sometimes nobody interrupts you. No ping, no banner, no tiny glowing emergency pretending to be a message. You just remember one thing, open one tab, check one detail, adjust one setting, and suddenly the original task is watching you leave voluntarily. In workplace research, about 44% of interruptions were self-interruptions, which is uncomfortable because it means part of the reset machine is installed inside the user. But that still does not make you lazy. A large experience sampling study found people's minds wandering in 46 or more emotions, as at the 9% of samples, which is a very official way to say the brain leaves the room a lot. Some of those exits are just drift, but some are open loops, unfinished goals, unresolved questions, small tasks waiting for a plan. The mind keeps poking them because unfinished business has no clean parking space yet, and the modern world makes that old habit worse, because every wandering thought now has an instant door. Here's what friction collapse looks like in real life. You start the serious task, and one small thought appears. I should check that before I forget. Before modern tools, that thought had to survive effort. Find the paper, ask the person, stand up, write it down, wait until later. Tiny barriers, but barriers. Now the door's already there. A tab opens, then a second tab explains the first tab. Then a quick check becomes a small task wearing a fake mustache. Nobody made one dramatic decision to abandon the original task. You just gave 5 tiny permissions, and by the time you look back, the mental thread is somewhere under the tabs. So no, the honest answer is not screens permanently broke your brain. That claim is too clean, and clean claims about messy human behavior usually deserve to be looked at with suspicion. Heavy media multitasking has been linked with worse performance in several cognitive areas, especially when irrelevant information keeps interfering. But reviews also find mixed results, and even the famous idea that a silent phone nearby drains your thinking is more disputed than the headline version suggests. So the safer conclusion is narrower, but stronger. Your attention system still works. The problem is that it is limited, and modern life keeps putting that limited system under repeated pressure from many directions at once. And that is where this stops being just a phone story and becomes something bigger, an attention marketplace. Back in 1971, Herbert Simon put a name on the trap. When information becomes abundant, attention becomes scarce. That sounds obvious now, but it changes the whole scene. Your task is not sitting alone waiting for you to behave better. It is competing against novelty, unfinished loops, cheap tabs, possible messages, low-friction escape, and the tiny internal voice that says just check one thing. Each one asks for a small piece of the same limited beam. And because the beam is limited, small requests are not harmless just because they are small. This is the attention marketplace. Not one villain stealing focus, but many systems bidding for a resource your brain cannot print more of. So attention feels broken because it is being treated as rentable space, and the unfinished task is still there, quietly making the worst business proposal in the room, effort now, reward later. So now you are back at the same task, with a phone nearby, the tabs waiting, and a few open loops still tapping on the glass. The point is not that your attention is useless. It is a limited beam trying to work in a room full of magnets. For some people, sleep, stress, habits, environment, or clinical conditions can change the picture, and this video cannot sort all of that from one desk scene. But the everyday broken feeling often means something simpler. The beam still works. The room just keeps pulling it sideways.